the man, the myth, the legendary Baldwin in the house.
We're good?
I think we're good.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started today. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully we'll have a lot of good information. We're going to start just kind of with this Stucco information. So I provided you a little video on Back Agent. Hopefully you'll watch the video because we need to be aware of Stucco. And look, I want to be clear from the very beginning. We're not anti-Stucco. There are very positive things about Stucco, and then there's some things that you just need to be concerned about. We have had a fair number of issues with Stucco in our industry over the last few decades, honestly. And most of it, I will tell you, it's just because it's the workmanship. Not everyone knows how to install Stucco. They don't install it properly in many of the instances. So believe me, Stucco's been around for thousands of years, okay? It's been a very good exterior clad material for thousands of years. But I want to be clear, most of that was in Europe in a dry climate against a cinder block or rock wall. That's a little different than installing, you know, new Stucco on this wooden frame with some weather sheathing between it. And so the thing about that little video that I sent you is that it showed you the inches of overlap and the way, you know, the 16 inches on the side and the 6 inches here and the 4 inches there and the 2 inches there, which I'm not sure every installer in Houston, Texas is doing. And when they don't do that, it creates a problem later. And remember, we've had these talks before about all types: brick, hardy plank, wood, Stucco, every exterior material will have water penetration, okay? And one's not necessarily better than the other. All siding, all exterior clad material is at some point designed for water to get behind it and then go down and get released. Water's going to get behind brick. It's going to get behind Stucco. It's going to get behind hardy plank. It's going to get behind 17 wooden siding. It's what happens to the water when it penetrates the exterior material. And when you don't have the proper installation, you're going to get wood rot, and then you have massive problems with that. So today we have with us via Zoom, Gordon Fox from Fox Inspection, who's going to kind of give us a little run through of Stucco and, you know, good, bad, and ugly. So Gordon, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All righty, we're going to put you up on the screen and start sharing with you with the people. So you have 15 or 20 people in person with me, and then you have some via Zoom.
So are we seeing so do y'all see a little tyke on a vehicle? Okay, that is Levi Fox. That is a while back. He is now 6'1", about 210 pounds, senior at Bel Air High School. I dragged him around on job sites. So this class, everything you always want to know about sex, but we're afraid to ask. I mean, Stucco, excuse me. This class is for you if you have or had a Stucco clad listing, you have or had a buyer for a Stucco home, own a Stucco home, or being involved in a transaction that had Stucco issues. Questions for those, my audience. I cannot see you. I'm going to depend on possibly Frank to be the techno wizard. When in the transaction did you find out y'all had an issue? Just shout it out.
An inspection?
During inspection? Found out from an inspection? What are numbers of the cost of repairs that y'all have run into in the past?
15 to 45,000. We got one up to 100,000.
Oh, pain, financial pain. What were the sticking points?
Is you get into the middle of the project and it's extensively more damage than you had anticipated, which causes increased cost and then delays. Yeah, right, easily.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone had the same feelings as Bill on that.
Thank you. Okay. So once you get into it, it can get a little messy, especially if it progresses more. All stucco repair contractors will have caveats in their repair estimate that it's based on the report. But once we open it up, and if it goes farther, this bid only covers X. If we find more, then I reserve the right to up my fee. That's just the way it works. Once I go into it, and we open it up. So knowing what you know now, what would you do different? Anybody? Any thoughts on that?
Make the seller repair before you close. The buyer doesn't have any potential downside after closing. And have great inspections along the way. Don't just wait till the end to re-inspect, inspect along the way.
All right. So just heads up, just saying what Bill says, all stucco leaks. So does brick, wood, hardy plank, vinyl, everything. All building exteriors leak, no matter what type of siding, it leaks water. The critical issue, like Bill said, is what happens to the water that gets behind the exterior siding. What happens to it? That's the critical issue. Does it flow harmlessly down behind the stucco and between the stucco, backside of the stucco and the tie back and out the bottom of the wall like it should? So you're looking at a house that is wrapped in a brand name tie back, but it could be there's other generic versions of this. There's tar paper. Any water that hits this layer and runs out and down harmlessly, not an issue. So I could rip off the brick cladding, the hardy plank, the stucco. If it doesn't get behind what you see in front of you, we're good. It's made to. This is what it's made for. It's a redundant system to protect it. When it flows behind the tie back or other waterproofing, water resistant materials, that's when it leaks into the walls and causes wood rot. These are the issues we have. When water that's always going to get there actually finds its way back behind the weatherproofing, the underlayment. So in a brick veneer, typical, you got like a 1-inch air gap. And so water, wind driven, brick masonry has a high hydroscopic factor rating. I forget what the proper term is. The ability to absorb water with negligible effects to the interior. They did not have or had very few issues of stucco clad masonry European construction. In the old country, they would basically have cinder block walls and finish it with, which is a hydroscopic, high density material, ability to absorb water without ill effects. And they put stucco on top of it. Is when we brought it overseas across the pond and then applied it on a wood substrate. So on brick veneer, typically, this is what you're looking for on a larger scale. It comes out. We're going to go over some common issues. I should change that slide. It's issues. It's not problems. We never have problems. It's just challenges. Common challenges with stucco. Soil too high, and it's mainly concerned with termites entering the property unseen. And that's because we live in a high area of subterranean termites. So when the stucco goes down to the ground or to the pavers, it looks better. It's finished. People like the look, but then you can have subterranean termites come up and get behind, and you only find out once they pop through to the inside. So very common for this to happen. This was a house in Southside Place where the stucco went down all the way to the ground. So they tore off the lower section. What was nice was the house had no ill effects from that. There were no subterranean termites going up the face of that slab behind the stucco that went all the way down the ground, and they just refinished it. But buyers were uncomfortable with not knowing if their house had termites or not. At the risk of sounding racist, Asian buyers tend to be very fearful, high anxiety with the white ant that can eat their house, because traditionally they come from an area of construction of all cinder block, concrete and steel. They are not comfortable with the fact that we accept as fact here in Texas, in the US, that we build out of wood and we have critters that can eat the wood. So just a heads up, if you have Asian buyers, they tend to be a little bit more cautious, anxiety prone with that. Did I come across as not racist on that? I just want to check. Okay.
Bill says you're fine.
Okay, cool. Okay. So here's what they did. They just redid it, added a weep screed on that. Here's what proper clearance should look like, so that that double arrow that you see near the control joint, the expansion joint, the piece of wood from the front porch to the sidewalk, any termites that come up there, if that cap was all the way down to the ground, we could have subterranean termites, and you can treat that with a bait station or a preventive treatment. But when you look at this, most people do not like the look. Okay, aesthetically, it's not as pleasing. Therefore, you can address this with a pre-treat, a preventative treatment, and on a wood destroying insect report, it will show something to the effect of obstructed view or conducive condition. And if you're working with VA or some particular lenders, they may want to have it pre-treated just because of the lack of proper clearance. Second thing, lower edge, plastic is back wrapped. This is the way we used to do it. Back in 1978, I was 18. It was legal for me to drive at 16. Back in 1978, it was legal for me to drink at 18, not like 21. Back in 1978, it was legal for me to drink and drive at the same time, get stopped for a tail light out. And when the cop comes up and wants to write me up a ticket for an tail light out, I say, here, can you hold my beer while I sign that? So
she's been freaking out this morning. She doesn't want to do the okay. Okay.
So what I'm trying to say, get a little back chatter
We're
there.
just gonna go back and look your teeth, okay?
Does she have
Frank,
a
can you
question?
mute them?
Okay.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right here.
Tiffany, can you mute yourself on your phone, please? She's probably not listening. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is the way we used to do things, we don't do them now for solid reasons. What we used to do was wrap the bottom side of the wood, plywood underlayment behind the stucco. We used to wrap it to protect it from the splash that would hit the ground and bounce up. That's what we always used to do. We used to do treat, what do you call it? Where you have a psychosis with a, how would they treat in the 1940s and 50s? If you had a mental problem, they would, never mind, I'll move on. That's not that. Basically, the plastic membrane wrapped under the wall sheeting can trap and hold the water, causing the sheathing to rot. We recommend that you cut those slits in the plastic with a razor knife to allow the water to escape and drain out. So the way we used to do things, we can fix it real easy by slicing the bottom of it, such that it looks like this. This was the back wrap of the plywood, the OSB underlayment. When you open it up, you can see the wood rot. When you put your hand underneath, it'll kind of crumble when you crumbles in your hand. This is the bottom side of the plywood underlayment, the sheathing, structural sheathing. This is pier and beam construction. You have a lot of this in areas of town. And this is the way, this is a stucco house. And let's pull back that wrapping, because basically they take, and it's like a bathtub, and the wood that they're trying to protect on the bottom side of it. And what happens here is water penetration gets in. And then we have evidence of water getting back in there and being held against the plywood substrate for prolonged periods of time. I'm not sure what that visible organic growth is, but that's the backside of a wall of a stucco house slab on grade, because that's the way we used to do it. And it's an easy fix to take care of it. So that's one of the common things. Here you have a picture of when they opened up a stucco wall and the back wrap. You can see that used to wrap and encapsulate the bottom side of the plywood, because they wanted to protect it from the splash of the water hitting the ground and bouncing up on that exposed edge. Nowadays, they would just put marine plywood on the bottom 2 feet, bottom 4 feet, and it takes care of that. And so this is just another example of it. It's just wherever that plywood was wrapped on both sides with the plastic, started rotting. The big one you want to be looking for, missing kickout flashing. Missing kickout flashing. It's basically where a roof wall intersection. So I've got a stucco wall or a whatever siding you have, and a roof comes up against it. Kick out left side without. Here's what a kick out flashing will look like, even though this one's kind of big, obtrusive, cosmetically not appealing, but the right side is what a kick out flashing is. Here is a repair of a stucco wall. This is a house, Bel Air or Westview near Stella Link, wherever, Bel Air, something like that. This is the fix. Without that piece of metal, that kick out, let's take a look at what happens. The water that runs down that roof intersects with that wall and then finds its way behind the stucco. And this is what it looks like before they did the repair. This was without the kick out flashing. This house, I believe, was less than 10 years of age. The red is where the water would run down, and it basically took out the plywood. This is now a backup, and the left side of your picture is where the missing kick out is, but it runs down and down that wall. So basically when they pulled off the stucco, it is attached with the mat with staples, etc., and nails to the substrate, the plywood. And so as they remove the stucco, the structural integrity of that sheathing, that plywood, was damaged, that it actually came off with it. It basically just crumbled with it. And that's from water over a period of time. So the repair, real simple. We just go in, rebuild it, and put that back. Okay. So this was put in. That amount of work was because of the red square, the upper left corner wasn't there for a period of time. Then they cover it with your waterproofing materials. I think this one had like a tie-vac of sorts, followed by the wire mesh that had its own tar paper attached to it. Brown coat, scratch coat. And it's now installed. And now we have, because this was just a small first floor roof that was obtained drainage from the second floor roof, hitting above and coming down. Here's an area on the other side over a window when you open it up. This one, I believe, was, you could actually see it if you move the window shade that's attached on the inside of that window, possibly, and you would see evidence of water penetration at the top of that window on the interior of the house. Okay. Over a window or any door opening, there's something called a header, a chunk of wood that helps support the opening below, transfers the loads. And right now, the plywood sheathing is damaged. They have to remove that to see if the structural component below is compromised. Front of the house, this is the repair. Up high, we got low risk. Down low with the roof water runoff from the second floor onto the first floor, it's a higher risk. So there's various areas of risk associated with behavior and construction techniques. This was the lower section. The area that's opened up right below the roof, that is a structural member, a header that spans the opening for the arched walkway below. This had to be replaced because of the dry rot that was below the missing kickout. And that's one of those boards. They put two of them there, and that's probably a 2x12. They may be able to take out the one and replace it, that kind of thing. So that's the kind of damage, structural damage. Then again, they repair it, cover it up, all looking pretty. This is how it looks when it's like this. Even without kickout flashing, it'll still look like this. You are looking for the kickout flashing, therefore it's a higher risk if you do not see it, especially if the house is 5+ years of age, where it's had time to have the ill effects of the water. So what about the upper kickout, lower risk? They opened it up, no issue. They went ahead and because of the way the water was not hitting that area, they were able to fix it. They opened it up. Oh, no issue. Great. Let's just put a kickout flashing in there and fix it up. Minor repair, no additional charges needed for any structural damage below. So every stucco house looks great from the front. It's devils in the details, missing kickout flashing, roof wall intersection. And then you get something like this, where it comes down the corner. And fortunately, the corner framing was not affected structurally. The 2x4s, I forget what I got too much information rolling around. It was just the plywood substrate that was damaged, but not structural in nature. So the framing was in good shape. Here we just go in, replace the plywood, put the kickout flashing in, and put it all back together. Next common, very common, water entry at windows. Let me back up. Everybody getting good information? A thumbs up if you're good, or any questions at this point in time?
I think we're all good. Thank you.
Okay. All windows leak. They leak at the corners traditionally, the miter joint. So let's plan for and build for leaky windows. If we know all windows leak at the corners where the cuts are, where they put them together, they put some foam in there, they might put some sealant, but we all know they all leak at the corners. We'll then put flashing in, and now we know, versus 1978, when you're 18 years of age, drinking and driving, we know to plan for it, so we can do that. There are details for window installation and proper flashing. There's a certain progression. Do this first, second, third, fourth, so that the water that runs down the face of the tie vac is good. We just don't want it running down behind the water resistant barrier. So let's look at a window that we know is going to leak. We use inspection mirrors to take a look. I'm looking up of the inspection mirror. Initial glance, it looks like it's just back wrapped. There's probably some rot below it, but let's just cut through it. It's actually not 6 mil poly. It's actually the structural sheathing is water damage there. Discolored plywood behind the stucco. Next one, common, inadequate caulking or sealing. The second one down is bolded. Caulking should not be your primary method of directing water where you don't want it to go, because caulking and sealants fail. They don't last long. Proper layering of the building materials, the flashing, the layering of the building materials should be the primary method of directing water where you want it to go. If you're relying on sealants, you didn't do the work properly. All right. Typical construction, 3-story townhouses inside the loop. Land prices are very high. We can't build out, we build up. I buy a lot and put 6 townhouses on it. We know all siding leaks. We accept that as fact now, just like, never mind. And what we're looking for is a method for it to drain out. If we know all siding leaks, we want to have a weep screed built in for this. A weep screed looks like this. Water that gets behind the stucco, we know it's going to get behind it. Behind all siding, we wanted a place for it to drain out. That's what we're looking for where those red arrows are. We want to see something like this. Builders are getting pretty good at this right now, installing these. So knowing all stucco leaks, all siding leaks, all windows leak, where does the water that gets in behind stucco from the second floor window go? Okay, where does it go? We know it. We accept it as fact, just the way it is. It ponds on the horizontal surface below. Okay, so how do we know that? Because we assume 99.9% or there's a high probability, however way you want to state it, that you're comfortable with stating, the probability of water getting in and then collecting. If you don't see a method for it to come out, there's a particular concern. And so what we're going to look for is, what are you looking for as a realtor? Your client, lack of inventory. All the in-town loop is all stucco. That's all I got to buy with. So what you're doing is, that's what I have available. Let me look, and I'll use these small guides to say, hey, we might want to have a stucco intrusive. We might want to have testing on this. You're looking for water stains on the side, bottom side of the overall hang wall. Okay. We're looking for water stains. So basically you're walking up, you're positioning yourself below this overhang, and you're looking for water stains coming through. And they'll look like this, where you have a structural beam that goes across that then carries the load of the second, third floor and roof. You're going to be looking at, because this beam is generally a parallam beam, structural beam, different type of structural member. It has to be very stiff, E of 2.0, etc. What you're looking for is cracks on this bottom side. You're looking for cracks in there, because what happens, water that gets in that wall drains down 2 floors. It hits that structural member and it begins to swell. And then what happens, it will crack the bottom edge and you'll see water stains. So you're looking at this area with the dotted red line, just kind of walk up and look up, and you're looking for any water stains or any separation, a crack on the bottom edge of this overhang, the structural beam. Generally what it indicates, so let's remove the stucco, shall we? It looks something like this from the water coming in. So this right here could look like that. Very simple to test. But if you see this indications, hey, just let your people know, oh, we may have some stucco issues. We want to make sure we get somebody in, contract extension if needed, if the weather gets foul, a lot of rain, that kind of stuff. So you'll see issues like this. Okay. Next one, missing door pan flashing allows water entry. This is the inside a door, exterior, water entry. This is during construction. If it's happening during construction, once I cover it with carpet or other wood flooring, it's still going to leak. And the carpet's going to hide it very well, or the wood floor is going to start buckling around the door. So let's take a look at this. So missing door pan flashing allows water entry. This is proper door pan flashing. It's installed before the door goes in, and it's layered properly. It's interwoven with the water resistant layers, the Tyvek, the tar paper. Here is what it looks like when it's built in place with sheet metal. There are certain rules for if you have two pieces that you put together, the overlap, the sealant of the overlap. Here we have a seam. There are certain rules of thumb that you want to overlap at a certain amount and put some sealant below it. But that way, any water that gets through the door, and remember, this is Houston, we have wind-driven rain. It's going to come through the door. It hits, goes through the door jamb, the door threshold, and will deposit itself down into this metal pan that then drains to the exterior. The back lip towards the house is critical because it allows, it's a dam. And in the ends of this door pan flashing, it has end dams that are sealed properly, proper techniques, so that the water that raises up to about a 1/4 inch is basically going to naturally flow to the exterior of the building, down and out, harmlessly away. Same for door pan flashing. You want to see window pan flashing. This is an excellent installation. Window pan flashing, second floor window. That's going to be just a picture window, I believe, because it's too low to the ground. And we have a pan set. I've got the Barricade brand Tyvek-ish water resistant material on the outside. Once my windows arrive, then I can slice this wrap in a certain manner and install my window in a particular order and tape and seal, and I'm good to go. So during a frame inspection, if I see this, I'm better assured it's going to be done properly. If I don't see this metal door pan flashing or a similar type material, I will possibly have increased odds of water penetration. This is what it looks like up close. And it's got the sides, it's got the back dam, it's got the ends. You want to make sure they're sealed properly. And you'd like it to be about a 5-degree slope where they're using wedges to make sure the pan drains to the exterior. And basically it's just, once you have this in place, you're just sticking the door and you're installing it like you're seeing this young lady do. You're putting it inside the door pan flashing, because usually they come in door units like this. My foot is touching a door pan flashing. This is in a location, a neighborhood close to your office that has, since inception, a long and storied history of having stucco issues, which shall remain nameless. But door's not fully set. Here we've got stucco where they pull off the front, and let's take a look at the damage. And it's probably missing door pan flashing. On the right side, it's more prevalent because there's no, the right side is more from the door pan flashing. The left side might be from the edge and the door pan flashing combined. Stucco inspection tools. Got to have a good inspector. Oh, is that a good looking guy or what? Tools of the trade. It's typically the brand most people use is Delmhurst BD 2100. you're looking at the probes. Basically 2 snake bite holes are drilled into the exterior, and then you force this probe in. The probes, the green is the insulated portion and the tips are bare, and the result is if you drive it into the substrate, if it's rotted substrate, it goes in easy. There's resistance. If there's hard resistance, that means the underlayment, the plywood's in good shape. It's strong, structurally strong. Then when you push the test button, a milliamp signal goes from one probe to the other. Wet building materials have higher conductivity than dry. There are settings on your BD 2100 to go from drywall, stone, masonry, or wood. And so what we're looking for, we basically, all our inspectors, we walk around the property looking for visual installation deficiencies that we previously mentioned. You're just kind of visually looking at it. Then you test the high risk areas. You don't just poke holes to poke holes. We don't make Swiss cheese. It's like when your doctor goes in and does a biopsy for a reason. He's doing some tests of some highly specific locations. We're checking to see if it's firm or soft substrate, plywood below the stucco. And then we're looking for the current moisture content of the substrate. Less is better, below 19%, greater than 19%, there's 18%, there's 15%, whatever you want to use. Generally, the higher it is, not good. However, what does come into play is recent rains, because sometimes clients cannot extend the option period. And so we have a caveat that says, hey, it rained recently. We like to wait 3 days, 72 hours after heavy rains in that particular location, because now we're getting heavy downpours localized throughout Houston. Some areas are totally dry and other ones are getting 1.5 inches of rain. So ideally, all things being equal, it would be 72 hours, 3 days since the last heavy rain in that location, because we know and accept the fact that all exterior siding leaks. And so the siding that leaks, it will drain down. And what we're looking for, if we go in right after a heavy rain, we just put the caveat in, some of our readings may be elevated because we're picking up moisture that's naturally draining the way it's supposed to. And then we're relying more on the substrate, firm or soft. However, if it pegs out at 40 when it maxes our reading, there's probably an issue with that. Protocol. Seller, this is destructive testing. We have to get a release signed by them. The release says, hey, we're going to put some holes in there. We're not going to make Swiss cheese. We're going to drill 2 small holes, snake bite, 3/4 inches apart, and do our testing. We check for the integrity of the substrate, relative moisture, record the information, seal the holes, and generate the report. But we have to get that paperwork signed by the seller, because it's this, destructive testing, or the seller's representative. If we don't get that release, we don't drill, plain and simple. And then in order for our schedule not to get big holes blown into it, if my office staff doesn't get it by a certain time, they will not schedule the stucco inspection, because it always seems like we don't get it. And some, just like a sewer line test, a hydrostatic sewer line test, you need to have a seller authorization. That's just the way it is that we work with. Here's how we do it. There's certain test areas. It's the corners of the windows and the mold joint between the 2 windows. Those are the high risk areas. And then on the bottom side of that overhang, here we've got some where we're getting some, this is probably back wrapped on the stucco. We'll test here. It came back 14% on that, not an issue. This right here, below a window, the lower section, we see where the 2 circles, If you look to the left a couple inches on your screen and to the right, if you look at it close enough, you'll see some stucco work, some repair work has been done. The surface of the stucco is suspect. Something's happened there. Therefore, it's a high risk. We tested up high near the corners where the water usually comes in, and then at the bottom. And for this one, it came back low. Okay. And it was firm. So yes, we had a high risk because we saw some issue with the stucco repair on the bottom. We confirmed no issue for us. And then we generate a report, and then you bid those reports, send them out to contractors to do the report findings. And then usually, occasionally they'll beat us up. Hey, I need to know more information. Fox's inspector didn't drill these two areas. I can't give you a firm bid because they missed this area, that type of stuff. With that. All right. How'd I do? And I'll stop sharing.
Questions?
Oh, we got some people in the chat. I can see now. Thank you for putting in the chat. 10 to 40,000. Went up to 100K. Okay.
I mean, always asking about what maintenance it should get sometimes stuff out. So, you know, a visual inspection every so often, caulking periodically, time to time, especially, you know, I think people rarely caulk except when they go to sell or when they go to repaint the house. I mean, and caulking sometimes it's the thing about some of these solutions is they're not pretty. The kick out plastic is not pretty, the exposed concrete is not pretty, so we do it intentionally, and we do it intentionally outside of stucco houses. We put wooden lattice around all wooden houses all the time, and we know it that that's the conducive condition for termites. We do it anyway to keep out whatever the dog or the cat or the raccoon. Some of these things you do, but you do them knowing that you're going to have to inspect your wooden lattice for termites more often than you would without the lattice. So I think just that's the normal, and yeah, just be aware. I would go look after rain. Is it properly draining? You know, are the gutters also hold water up there? They don't have some screen on. Often the gutter holds a bunch of water at the top of the house. And behind the window more than normal, then causes more problems with, you know, the water penetration. But look for the water draining from your brick house, your hardy plank house, and your stucco house or whatever. And balconies right now, we didn't really get that. We got tons of these balconies, especially what's appropriate slope. We give them our stucco also towards the water, likely to go backwards towards the doors and windows. Then you're going to have an increased chance of just water penetration. That the water stays longer. So looking for the water and how it's releasing from the structure is what we're going to do. You want to add anything? Yes.
There are those rules that there were in one of the things we did was I reached out to a special inspection company, and they would do a visual inspection prior to the process to look at the areas that might be concerned, like the flashing three-story structure. And so that was very helpful for them to do that. And what they also recommended was to have a stucco inspection done prior to the end of the one-year warranty. Issues and then catch it and take it to the
The point of the tune-up of your car is to catch something before you have a blowout, or before your radiator busts, or before your fan belt busts. So I mean, the same thing. Some sort of annual inspections of these sort of things are not a bad idea for homeowners, and you know they just don't typically do that sort of thing. But it's not a bad idea, especially if let's say it's not the new one, I do think the annual inspection is a great idea. But let's say you have a 10-year-old stucco house, I still, before I paint it, because the painter's just gonna cover up a bunch of crap, I think I'd go have it some sort of non-biased, independent inspection of the home, not necessarily someone who wants to sell you something, but a non-biased person like inspection, inspecting the house every so often is probably a pretty good idea every 5 or 10 years or so.
Gordon, you have something to add?
Yes, on our, when we do the home inspection, the stucco inspection is a whole nother fee, but all my inspectors are trained to visually look at it because I pulled them all out of the field. We've gone to multiple properties. We've done multiple training. And so with the home inspection, they'll get one of two statements. One, I've looked in italics print, informational only. Hey, I looked over the house. I did not see any particular issues of concern. However, if it's a concern for you, recommend you get additional stucco intrusive inspections prior to the expiration of your option period. And then the other statement, if we do see some signs for concern, it's a bold print that basically states to the effect, hey, I see some areas of concern, recommend you have additional stucco intrusive testing to determine if there's a problem. So it's either one or the other, because unless we do get called in to do home inspections, pool, mold, and stucco all on one day, that's generally the higher end properties with certain type of clients that money's not an option. But generally we tend to get the majority of clients, they want to know what the condition of the property is before they want to spend another inspection fee to do the stucco inspections.
There's a question about the warranty, what sort of, I mean, maybe there's some builder warranty, but almost all these warranties, I want to go back to what Gordon said, there's some form of disclosure. They can't warranty what they don't know, and typically what arises is things that we're not aware of in the first place. So they might warranty some work that they do for a certain period of time, but they're not warranting the rest of it. So you can't,
Can you buy the
not really,
ongoing warranty?
not really, because there's enough disclosures for them that says that they're not going to cover things that they didn't know they weren't aware of before. I think most builder warranties are worthless. We like to feel good about them, but it's about the same thing. You can get blood from the furnace, and there's almost always the builder's going to say the buyer didn't maintain it properly, didn't properly caulk it, you know, we've got to relay back to the third party, stuck over that. I mean, it's just there's very little through warranties to make people feel good. That really works.
Fewer workers today than we had 5 years ago. And that's from plumbers and electricians and framers or whatever. And, you know, the trades are not here. They're just not here. So the person framing this building today, and you hire Marco to do it, who we used 20 years, but he's still getting a guy that just started last month. And is Marco really training them like we're talking? No, I doubt it. Is Marco really watching over them? No, I doubt it, because Marco's busier than he's ever been before, whatever. So I think we got to be realistic. Sometimes the quality of work, it's not great. Painting in a house, it's the same scenario. You can get a paint job and it's $5,000 or $15,000. It's never the paint. It's the prepping of the paint. Painting is cheap. What is not cheap is prepping for it and sanding down and doing the caulking and doing the other things that are kind of necessary with that. So, I mean, I wouldn't say the cheapest is worst, but you just have to decide for yourself. And some people, you know, have more overhead than others. Maybe Lupe doesn't have 19 trucks in an office building, and it doesn't mean that he's worse or better. But I think that sometimes it's just a function of getting good references from people. And the same thing, just watch them as they work. Do they really understand, you know, that someone's gonna be an outside? I know a lot about construction. When we built 1545 Heights Boulevard, used Marcos, the framer, they installed the damn windows backwards. They installed the windows backwards. They were the wrong way, okay? Now, we hired Gordon Fox along the way to go to, and the city didn't even, 2727 Kirby, installed $16 million worth of windows. Every window on that building for 35 stories was backwards. Okay, backwards. I guess it's confusing how it works. I mean, I think they're untrained workers who don't read the directions or whatever. I mean, that was $100 million lawsuit. Of course, that builder died. The wife inherited the building. It happens more than you would think. When I did Balin, I hired Fox Inspection along the way. I paid them about $4,000 to inspect the house. After the city framing inspection, I had him come back and recheck it again. I think sometimes a third party, and they always catch some things or whatever. So good supervision, Star, I think, is really the key, no matter who you use or whatever. Third party. Sure, Fox is the perfect one. I'm not saying you have to use Fox. I think there are plenty of other people. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. Might be fine. Yeah. They should rely on their own, I mean, decision.
We installed in our house a ceramic tile, and we didn't go with the cheapest guy. We're like, okay, we're not going to use the top uses. We're going to use someone that spoke and everything. Everything was great the day that I was there, and then I leave, go to work, do my thing, and then our dining room is like, well, there was another set of workers that came in and did that part of the room, and so then I was like, I don't want it for. I want it redone. Yeah, my husband's like, you can't live with it. I'm like, I mean, I can, but I can't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, something like that to someone that's like trained to do that would be like, yeah, your floor needs to be completely redone. Where like my husband's like, no, let's just live with it for a little. You're gonna want new floors later anyway. But that's all. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, we'll get you some. Great. Well, let's get that guy. Mm-hmm. Jim.
Yeah, so in previous experience, any subcontractor, it doesn't matter who it is, the guy that has all the answers, it makes you feel really happy. That's the owner. So on bigger construction sites, they always have, job management superintendents, because they say, you're good, we just want to talk to the guys installing it.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that they're as good as you are.
Yeah. Well, rarely they are. I mean, let's just be clear, they're not.
And then the installer is something different.
Yeah.
Because they're doing shortcuts, or, I had my house painted, and I went like every 3 hours, stop by the house, just making sure. So rather than using the $125 a gallon primer, the premium primer, I caught a guy using a spray can of primer.
Yeah.
And I said, take that shit off, use this primer, and then when you're finished, I want you to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I called the painter, and he fixed it. He took care of it.
Yeah.
You gotta really.
You do have to watch them. I mean, I think you have to watch anyone.
You gotta police the activity.
Yeah.
And people have to be there all the time.
and that's everywhere though.
That's right.
I mean, home builders, you see it everywhere. So, yeah, it's good to like kind of police them, but sometimes you aren't the expert at
Right.
policing them, or you didn't know what the difference was between Lupe's gonna be better than mill guy, you know?
Yeah.
Lupe may be great, and but she doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, by the way, Star, it was great, or we decided to go middle guy and it wasn't great.
And sometimes, I mean, construction is expensive. I'm not passing judgment, but some people offer health care for their workers, which costs them another $17,000 a month. Some people have builder's risk in case they shoot a nail through their hand and can never work the rest of their life. They have money for the rest of their life of their family. And those things do cost more money. And they are a value that we choose people who are ethical in the treatment of their employees also, right? I mean.
People come with a whole lot of marketing material, and labeled vehicles are a lot more expensive.
Yeah, they just are. I mean, but same thing, if your nephew is working for a painter, wouldn't you want him to have builder's risk and health insurance? Sure, I think it's reasonable that something, I think we are spoiled with very cheap labor, and it's been cheap for a reason. And I think we need to sometimes pay a little more so that everyone has ethical treatment.
So one of the other things I do, I get them to give me a quote, and I said, I'll buy the materials, you just.
Yeah.
do the labor.
I think that's a
And the
good idea.
question is like when you're replacing plywood, you know, you can get regular plywood, you can get treated plywood, but even Fox mentioned, you know, if you get marine grade plywood, you have less
Yeah.
issues.
I mean,
And
that's
twice as much for it, but in the long run, it just saves you.
the building materials that are used in our industry are often the wrong material. They're not using treated lumber on these porches, on these trim pieces. That's why they rot in a year, because they don't want to pay 5 times more for the water that for the wood that's really treated, designed for that very purpose. That marine grade, which, I mean, I'm building a dock. You'd be surprised the number of people that build a dock with the wrong wood, and you wonder why it rots, you know, in 2 years. There's wood that will last 40 years in the water. You just have to pay for that wood that's designed for that.
Grade plywood is what they build boats with.
Yeah, so I mean, it's designed for water. You don't have to use the whole house, but maybe those thresholds where he was talking about are the bottom deal. Okay, I just thought we needed to have a little stucco talk or whatever. Don't be scared of stucco, because look, we just know to look for this water penetration more in stucco for some particular reason. I'm telling you, there are very similar issues for hardy plank and wood and brick. You just don't inspect or have the same level of scrutiny or whatever. So just because it's stucco doesn't make it wrong. Look for the same sort of weep holes and things in your brick houses, and the same thing. I mean, the hardy is often way too low, but nobody wants to see that exposed piece of the concrete or whatever. So we just do it anyway, knowing that the termites could get behind there. And when we see the termites, we'll deal with it. And if that's your choice, that's your choice. But I just wanted you to be aware. And I like that little video because it shows you the true way to really do it properly. And if you're doing the work, then make sure that, you know, are they really overlapping 16 inches on the side and 6 inches down below and 2 inches there? And you'd be surprised on these wrapping the windows, the number of people that do that shitty. They have that tie back up, but when they come to do the windows, they just cut through there and they pull it around. But then there's gaps of inches all the time around these windows. Just go to a construction site. It wouldn't be hard to figure out they didn't do it properly. Okay, what else we got going on? Okay, I wanted to mention this conforming loan limit one more time. Just, I think I mentioned this the other day to make sure that you understand. This is almost every loan, 99.99% of all loans are backed by the federal government, okay? They cannot handle banks going into foreclosure. It's just too much chaos or whatever. So even if, no matter where you can go to Chase or you can go to PAF or whatever, that loan eventually is going to be bought by the federal government. It's just, and then that's how we're going to pay for the retirement for all the federal employees for the rest of the life over here. So, I mean, and so when very few lenders really keep the money in-house or whatever. So the government wants, there are certain loans that are just easier for them, and that's why we have this conforming loan limit or whatever. In 2020, that limit was 510. In 2021, it was 548. In 2022, it's going up to 625. The reason it's going up is because housing costs are more expensive, and really Texas is still in the middle. Some markets are more extreme, so there's a higher conforming loan limit actually in California and New York than there is in Texas, but most states are based kind of like Texas. And that means so long as your loan amount stays below $625,000, that loan's going to be easy to sell into the third-party market and to the federal government. So most people, you can just follow the numbers. They're going to put 10 or 20% down, so you buy your $680,000 house, you put your 10% down, you stay below $625,000 for your loan amount. That loan is easy to get. The interest rate's going to be easier. It's going to be cheaper so long as you stay below that deal. We've had, in the last 2 years, there's usually a very large difference between conforming loan limit and non-conforming loan limit, okay? So a jumbo loan, that means those things that are loans greater than $625,000 in 2022. And as interest rates rise, you'll see the difference of the deals. Typically, if the conforming loan limit was 3%, the non-conforming loan limit would be as high as a point or two higher than that. So you're going to pay 4 or 5% for non-conforming versus the conforming loan limit. Today, the economy is just in shambles. So when it's in shambles, they just pump all this money into the world. And so right now, there's very little difference between a jumbo loan and a conforming loan. But I'm just telling you, it won't be long till they're much different. The way people typically get around it, if we're selling this $1 million house or whatever, let's say you put 10% down, so you got $900,000. And so what we do is a first lien for the 625, because that's going to be the cheap interest rate, and a second lien, and it's going to just be higher. The second lien for the 275,000 is going to be higher than the first lien, but you average the two together. So if a jumbo loan was at 4.5%, and you can get a first lien for 2.75 and a second lien for 4.5, you average those together, that's still like 3.25 for your total interest payment or whatever. And that's what most people end up doing. I mention it because as you start playing more and more in expensive houses, you start getting above this 625 loan amount, you are going to see in 2022 a pretty big difference in these interest rates. That's all that it really matters. And so I just wanted you to be aware of that. If you stay below 625, it's not that big a deal. A lot of talk about these homestead exemptions. I want to make sure you understand this gets very confusing. It's kind of like many vocabulary is hard for people to understand. So we have homestead exemption that we've been getting. If you own the house January 1, you file for your deal between April 30th. Starting in January 1 of 2022, you now no longer have to wait. If you close January 2nd of 2021, you had to wait a whole year to own it on January 1. That is automatically not going to be the case after January 1, okay? You'll be able to qualify for homestead exemption if you close March 1st or July 1st or September 1st or whatever. And we'll be explaining how that works a little bit later. They're still working out how this paperwork. It will help people that were in this mad rush to close on December 31st or whatever. And it's certainly going to help people that closed on new construction in February, March, or April. They were often penalized, paying a much higher rate than the people who closed on December 31st. So that we'll be explaining thoroughly at the beginning of the year. Not to confuse that homestead exemption that you're qualifying for with the election that we're having in May of 2022, which is to increase the exemption amount for your school taxes, which will save the average homeowner about $176 per year by increasing the automatic exemption if you have homestead exemption. That's a vote by the people in Texas in May or whatever to increase, and it'll be retroactive going backwards to January 1. Very confusing for people to understand what we're doing. One is just something you automatically are going to qualify for if you live there. One we're going to vote for that's going to be retroactive, that's going to increase the amount of that exemption, thus making it cheaper for your property tax bill to be reduced. So just want to lay a little groundwork that we're talking about two different things happening kind of simultaneously, and be a little confusing there. But the homestead exemption, it is an increase in the school exemption that would be automatic if you had a homestead. Yes, you would go from $15,000 to $40,000 of an automatic exemption for your homestead. For the school, remember the largest taxes in any entity, the school taxes are the largest taxes, okay, of every county in the 254 counties in Texas. So anything we can do to kind of, and they offset that by giving the schools more money. They're not giving the schools less money. They're just paying for that out of a different fund versus the property tax bill. So there's no net loss to schools by increasing the exemption. There is just, it will help, especially people who really need the $176 on an annual basis for their school taxes. So like in my lake house, it'll actually make a huge difference. Huntsville's much cheaper than this. So my $500,000 house, the total tax bill is only $2,400. I don't have to qualify for any exemptions there. But if you increase that exemption for the school taxes, then that'll probably save me $400 out of $2,400. That's a pretty big number, I think. But HISD is, we're talking about much larger numbers. So, but the average homeowner in a $400,000 house would save $176.
Okay, you brought up a very, so can you get, like, you're getting an exemption on Huntsville?
No, I don't get an exemption in Huntsville. No,
So you only get one?
you get to pick your homestead, sure.
Yeah, you only get to pick one.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
So like this called HCAP.
Mhm, yeah.
So I mean, they were very informative, but, I really didn't see, like, yes, we closed and you technically already qualified.
We didn't work until 2022.
2022, it was qualified, but then still HCAP will not submit everything to the following year. It was this woman told me, and I was like, I don't
No,
know.
that's not true. That's not right.
Because I feel like we're already doing that.
No, you're gonna qualify.
So I don't know what the difference is. She might not, I was calling to get information about it. And I mean, I got transferred several times. And
The easiest way for me to explain it is my client bought a nonprofit, okay, at 1814 Columbia, okay? So the nonprofit paid 0 in taxes, okay? And we closed June 1 of 2019, actually, okay? Now, they didn't qualify for the exemption. You would think in the homestead world, okay, well, that's going to get, you're going to not pay taxes until the next year. Automatically, the day you close, those taxes start becoming, they're not due, but they start accumulating. So then at the, of course, at closing, there was no proration of taxes because the seller paid 0. So the buyer got 0 or whatever, but they got a tax bill from June 1 through December 31st, if there had been no exemptions whatsoever, right? So they've been calculating that money. They recalculated, not based on January 1, which is how the homestead was. They based it just when you lost that exemption, now you have to pay the taxes on that portion. The same sort of thing, the same method will apply. You didn't have homestead exemption typically, but now you close March 1, you're going to get homestead exemption from March 1 through December 31st, even though, but that's how that's going to work. And you would not have qualified for that without this law changing until the following year. So they're going to recalculate the taxes without the homestead exemption, January 1 through March 1, that builder's going to owe. Buyer's going to live there in homestead, file his homestead paperwork now. You're going to have the same 4 months to do it. So you close July 1, you still have plenty of time to go file for your exemption and qualify for that. But they don't have the paperwork worked out yet. Well, and then maybe they need a little more training. They probably need a little more training. But that's the whole purpose of the bill, is to make it, that's the intent of the law change that the governor signed, so that you weren't penalized and having to wait 10 months for something that truly is your homestead.
So Bill?
Yes, question in the Zoom?
Yeah, it's Cynthia.
Hey,
So
Cynthia.
does that mean, so if you were getting charged taxes on the value on January 1, which when someone's selling the house, their taxable value is a lot lower than the sales price. So now you're going to pay, you're getting the homestead exemption, but if they've owned the house for a long time and their taxable value is really low, now you're going to pay more taxes because they're doing it on the sales price, right?
So the question is, let's say you're buying a house and for $1 million and the taxable value is $600,000 because they lived there for 30 years and you're closing the same March 1. We would have prorated the taxes, could have prorated the taxes based on that $600,000, I suppose, thinking that there was going to be a 10% cap. Yes, potentially the taxable value is going to increase because now we're going to file for homestead on March 1. And yes, they're going to calculate your new price, $1 million, not the old price of $600,000, because that person lost their exemption and you're getting your new homestead exemption on your new value. So in theory, yes, Cynthia, you could pay more. In reality, I don't know that that's a lot of cases, but the value will go up when you file your new homestead exemption because it's going to be based on the new fair market value. They're not going to use last year's value when they give you homestead on this deal. You're not going to be able to keep the cap went away when that person sold it of the 10%, and your reassessed value is going to be the day that you close, March 1, July 1. Yes. Did I answer that thoroughly?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yep. Could mean more for some people. Okay. Any other questions, comment? We probably have a lot going on today, so we bought some more lunches. Yes, Jim?
Just, you explained it to me, but, you know, there's a place, you go down Woodway, it's got a fancy name like Calais, something, it's all big Mediterranean homes that were built like 10 years ago. They're all stucco.
Well, that was the wrong, that's not off Woodway. I mean, that's by Memorial Park there. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, it's hard to go in there and look at houses without seeing scaffolding everywhere.
Oh, there's tons of developments like that. You can Google plenty of complex and it says rowanwrightstucks.com or whatever your builder that you want to talk about. That's just one, but there's lots of them that, even there's that mid-rise at Montrose kind of by Present Company. I mean, they all had our builders, a lemon builder on the front of their building forever. They stood out there protesting all the time because the builder was bad. But some builders are good and some builders are bad. Yeah. In that subdivision, there was more than one builder though.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're all having problems.
You know, people want cheaper and they want it to be better and cheaper, and it's not usually both. I mean, sometimes you get what you pay for a little bit.
Stucco, you know, even though they're a higher price, I think they're one of the better stucco inspectors
Mhm.
and applicators. You know, you get what you pay.
Yeah, typically. I don't really know. Okay, any other questions, comments? Yep. AdWorks, yes?
So someone in Dallas saw my ad, but it wasn't for a listing, it was just,
You.
yeah, so that happens also.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, they had to have Googled something that was related to you. They looked at your website.
Okay, so if you're even feared.
That's right. It's following you. It's something they did with you. So they might have looked at one of your other listings and then something popped up and it's just you kicking in there. It's following you. Yes. And I think we're seeing more. I mean, I was a little disappointed we didn't see more the first couple of weeks, but I do hear more positive stories of things, people seeing our stuff more on when they're searching for something else. It could be just best barbecue in Houston and maybe, Cindy pops up over there if they had been looking at something, Cindy's listing in Oak Forest 2 months before. So,
I paid the extra $325 for 90 days. They guaranteed me that they could. And it worked, it was beyond my expectation in the sense that there were more people that saw it, out of 32,000 people that they sent it to, I got probably 24 people clicked on it to see.
Yeah. AdWorks is not the only place we're doing this. This was an easy one. I mean, our next version is really into this culture map stuff. So to go to culture map and go to the Chronicle, online, digitally only or whatever, and do the same sort of thing. Pop up Catherine's listing. Then when someone clicks on that deal, and then 3 months later, they click on something that's related to Catherine and Catherine pops up over there in their feed. So, I mean, we're just AdWorks was an easy way for us to kind of test it a little bit. And it was one of the more reasonably priced ones where everyone could mutually benefit because you all got something every time you got a listing, or you got your own little page that could be done, but if you didn't have any listings or whatever. So we're going to definitely be doing more of this. Can you go to this HAR? Do you know how to log into HAR? While we're just talking about that, I mean, I'm in love with this little listing and how they did it, because I still think the same thing. I'm telling you, if you're not making a 30-second video of why someone should use you, I think you're making a mistake. I think you got to be able to be a little more visual than just a piece of paper saying, let me be your realtor. You're gonna have to do a little bit of that, but you're gonna have to have more interactive stuff, little commercials or something, whatever. So go to 1504 Kipling. And the same with the houses. I think you got to stop thinking one-dimensional with these pictures, and you got to go to the pictures right quick. You got to put on some photos that make something interesting. Click through a few, because he's just done a good job in general. Keep going until you see a few more or whatever. So what I like about these, when you keep going, so there's a lot of photos here, so you'll start seeing what I'm talking about in a second. Keep going. Should have started sooner, but I'm sure this is it. So these sort of photos. So instead of just having a mud room where you got a bunch of vacant stuff over here, you're going to have something showing people how you use the mud room. Keep going again because it's so. And then same thing, not just a hallway, but someone in a hall. I mean, someone is going to look at this picture a hell of a lot longer than if this person was not in this photo. That I do know. I don't have to be a marketing genius to figure that out. Keep going, you'll just see some more of these sort of things. These sort of photos where there's something interesting in them, keep going. You know, kids playing, kids jumping on a bed, keep going. You're just gonna, I promise you, they will linger longer in this photo than if it was just a typical bedroom. Continue to try and find some ways that you can demonstrate what's happening in these photos is, do what? Well, I mean, don't you want, if you have kids, don't you want to go see this house? Doesn't it fun? I mean, doesn't this capture just the whole essence of why you met? This is a 6-bedroom, 6.5 bath house or whatever. You know what it's screaming for? A bunch of kids. I mean, that's what this is telling me. It's a modern house, but it's a modern house for a family. And that's why they're trying to set themselves apart than just your typical sort of modern house or whatever. I mean, I think these sort of things just make it so interesting over here. Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, I don't want to be into the, I think you got to have a little variety. You got to have some black people and some brown people and some disabled people and all. I can't just have a bunch of white people in your photos over here. We need a little variety in our photos. And as we virtually stage them, we're going to need to make sure that we take some of that sort of thing. But this is just so, I mean, I just think this is a great example of what you're supposed to do here. So I just wanted to point that one out. Yeah, he did a great job of it. Yeah, I mean, these are probably his kids or something. He's the realtor and it's his personal house or whatever, so it's probably easier. Okay, I'm around. If you need anything, let me know. We have lunch, I think, for people, so if you're interested, you're welcome.